Hey there, friends! Thanks for tuning in to another episode of An Artist's Way of Healing. I am your host, Jonathan Palmiotti. I am excited you're here. Today we have yet another exciting guest speaker who has graciously made time to be here today to inspire us on her artist journey and to tell her story on how the arts has inspired her to become who and where she is today. Today, I present to you Annemarie Levakis from Long Island, New York. Annemarie, please say hi to our listeners.
Hey, everybody.
Annemarie is a vocalist, actress, and aerialist based out of New York. Over the past 2 years, she has had the opportunity to create singing aerial acts and perform them in venues around NYC. When she is not training and performing on an aerial apparatus, she works as a recreation therapist where her main responsibilities are to run music-based programs for her residents. Annemarie, it's great to have you here. So 2 of the things you mentioned that you do are that you're an aerialist and a variety artist. Do you mind telling our listeners what an aerialist and variety artist is?
Sure. An aerialist is basically an acrobat who uses apparatuses to perform in the air, like stunt type of things. And a variety artist is somebody who has an act, so it would be like a unique type of act, like maybe a magician, or something like that, and they perform it in a show.
And when did you start doing that?
Variety performing, I want to say maybe two-ish years ago. It's funny because a friend of mine had asked me to join an aerial yoga class with her, and I didn't really know what that entailed. So I got there and everyone was upside down, and I was like, okay, like, what am I getting myself into? And now I want to say it's been 8 years. 8 years later, here I am doing this almost, I wouldn't say every day, but quite a few times a week. So yeah, it's been a journey.
And how has that helped you in your process, like in regards to being an artist? I know that's probably more of like a left field thing, especially since you and I know each other from college, and you have like a really big music background. Was it a big shift for you? Was it a big change? Is there anything that you feel like that was hard to kind of like adapt to?
Well, I almost feel like I have more freedom with this type of performing. I really like it because it gives me like the space to do kind of whatever I want to do, and I just kind of go off and do my own thing, which I really love. Sometimes I feel like with musical theater, there's only so much space to do like what you want to do with a character, and I have a lot of freedom to do whatever I want. It's fun.
That's amazing. I've known you for since what was it, 2012 to 2015? We had college together.
Yes.
And I always knew you were like a very hardworking person. You inspired a lot of people, especially with your crazy talented voice. It was really something that people just kind of opened their eyes and were like, wow, this is amazing. So the fact that you're able to kind of combine both this new art, this aerial art, plus going ahead and continuing your music art, it's just really something that seems interesting. From the many Instagram posts that you make and the videos, it really looks really cool. What do you feel like when you're going up there in that aerial view? Is it really kind of scary, Oh,
yeah. Thank you so much for all your kind words. Yeah, I'm actually working on that. It is really scary going up super high. I kind of make it a goal to climb up a few more times and do more basic stuff from a higher height. Because when you're performing as an aerialist, a lot of times it's more impressive to be higher, so I'm kind of working on that. But yeah, definitely it can definitely be very scary, but the more you do it, the more strength that you build, you become more confident in that.
That's really amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So you do musical theater, aerial acrobatic art, and variety cabaret. You are also a recreational therapist, and that honestly, you are very busy. That sounds a lot, and it seems like you have your hands full, but in a good way. Are there any specific role models that inspired you to start doing your art? If so, who? If not, what does motivate you to do your art?
One of the artists that inspires me the most is Pink. I really love, the types of concerts she does. I feel like it's very similar to what I do. But I think that she's amazing, and I love her attitude where she, doesn't really care what anyone else, thinks of her. I think it's a struggle sometimes to have that, but it's definitely something to work towards. This type of art, a lot of people have told me, like, oh, you should try singing and doing aerial at the same time. Like, it would be so cool. And I always thought about it, but like never thought I can actually do it. And then I actually I submitted to something where they were doing this thing where it was called open stage, and they would help you not create your act for you, but kind of aid you in it, where like I create the act and then they would help me with like the lighting and whatever. And it was through a place called the Muse in Brooklyn, and I had submitted for it with the idea without my act done. And this was like basically where you would create your act after getting accepted to it. So then I got accepted to it, and then I was like, uh-oh, like I actually I have to actually do this now. So I was really nervous. I was like, oh no, like what do I do? But you know what? Within the time that I had for it, I picked a song that I was really comfortable with, and an apparatus that I had been doing for a while, which at the time was Lyra. And then I just kind of played around with it, and I came up with something.
So
Yeah.
you said Lyra. What is that?
Yes. So Lyra is the aerial hoop, but that's like the circus term for it.
And you said that you were really nervous, and
Yeah.
you said you weren't sure you were going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So like, how did you, make that overcome, thing to actually say, okay, you know what, I'm ready. I'm going to do this. I'm gonna be this this thing that I'm not used to.
So what's interesting is I've always been super judgmental at how I sound as a vocalist, and with this type of pairing, like aerial and singing, you kind of have to almost let that go because it doesn't always sound the way that you want it to. So it was really, really challenging to let go of, like, oh my God, that sounded so bad, So I just kept practicing it. And the more that I find different tricks that go with singing, like I have like, a way of figuring out what tricks are better to do with singing. The more I do it, and the more I did it at the time, the more I started to become more confident in how it sounded. I'm like, okay, I just started workshopping it and just playing with it. So I got more confident as the time went on.
Okay, so Annemarie, from past conversations, you mentioned to me that you are currently working on an aerial piece for a big celebration event in your life. Do you mind telling our listeners about that piece that you are working on? What is it you're celebrating, and why this piece hits home to you?
So I had some thoughts to create a piece about being in remission for 10 years from having cancer. I had stage II Hodgkins lymphoma 10 years ago, and this year is the celebration of 10 years being in remission. I haven't fully started this piece yet, but I would really like to start working on it. I'm working on trying to figure out a song that works well with that. A lot of the pieces that I've done so far more so have a showmanship quality. This one would be more, bringing in personal experiences, which is definitely something different than I've done so far. A lot of my stuff recently has been to entertain. But this one would be being a bit more vulnerable.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know that's probably really such an accomplishment that, it is an accomplishment that should be really just, you should be proud of. It is a really hard thing and scary thing to come out of something like that, or even to just go through it. But, the amount of pride that you feel, I can only imagine, is just something out of this world. And now that you're actually been in remission for quite a while, it really makes sense that you would actually take your art and really show some sort of celebratory thing to show that you, knock on wood, free of anything. But you have successfully, in a sense, healed from that traumatic experience. Do you have a name for it?
For this specific piece?
Yeah.
Not yet. I'm just kind of playing. It's more so a process of me like thinking of songs and what I want to do it on, because I have experience on, like I was saying before, the Lyra, the aerial hoop, so that's the same thing. Silks, which I've been really working hard on. Silks is, I think, the hardest one I've done so far. I have some experience on trapeze, and also I've done sling, which is the aerial hammock. But it's trying to figure out which one I want to use. I think I would want to use Lyra because I think Lyra is the out of all of them so far, that one has been the easiest for me to sing on. So it's just picking which one I want to use and then what song, makes the most sense with that type of piece.
Now, you also do music recreational therapy. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you do for the organization?
I work as a recreational therapist at a nursing home, and basically, like, I sing to the residents. I run music programs. So, like, every day when I go into work, like, I'll have a schedule of what I'm scheduled to do that day. So my boss will give me a unit to be on that day, and I'll do a music program. So, for example, I do a lot of programs called Music and Memoir, where I'll basically run the program around who's there, and I know a lot of the residents and know which songs they really like. So I'll play songs that, like, maybe are reminiscent of when they were growing up, or a lot of my residents at the moment like 80s songs.
Wow.
We have some residents who are maybe in their 40s and 50s and 60s, so a lot of those residents like disco and the 80s, and like some that are very nostalgic to me, so we start bonding over those types of songs, like but it's a lot of like nostalgic music.
Yeah, of course. And what have you gotten out of it in regards to for you?
I think it's a very rewarding job. I'm very blessed to have this opportunity to work in a place where I enjoy what I do. A lot of times when you are an actor and you're looking for a side hustle or something to make money, it's hard to find something that's rewarding, and I'm very blessed to be given the opportunity to do what I love to do and also sing to people on a daily basis, and and watch everyone have a good time, and we do such fun programs there. I have a lot of fun.
Back in high school, I actually used to volunteer for a specific nursing home, and I had to do it actually for credit towards high school to graduate. It was like a 50-hour thing, and then just do it. It was really more so to just volunteer. It was not really to put any music capabilities that I had in the forefront, but they found out that I do music, and it put such a joy on their face. They felt like, oh my gosh, this is something that I can look forward to every single day. And it almost went as far as even like teaching the residents how to play a little bit themselves, the piano. So I guess my question to you is, have you gotten any kind of like feedback from those residents saying, hey, this is really something I really look forward to coming, and really feel like this is something that just helps heal me?
So I'm like their designated music person, and like a lot of my residents really enjoy coming to karaoke and like all the things that I run. They definitely have, in the past told me that they really enjoy being there. And it's just a lot of fun. Like, I have such a good time, and they have a good time. And recently I've done this program where it's like Billboard top 100 greatest songs of all time. So I'll go down the list, and it's kind of like I set it up like almost like it's like a radio station in a sense. Like, okay, so number 98 is this song. And what's kind of cool about like those lists online is that there's a really interesting mix of songs like from the 50s, and then there's some from the 90s, and then it's just so much fun. And we have so many different ages of people that live at the nursing home. So I'll be playing songs from the 80s, and they're like, oh my gosh, I love this song. And then we all just start like jamming out to the song, and we just have such a good time. And I think, it's times like those I can see like that they really enjoy being there. Weekly, like I'll have like a program that they enjoy going to, and the same people will come every week.
I was going to say, like,
yeah.
I'm guessing you kind of know those people by first
Yeah.
name now, and you're like, hey, Geraldine,
yeah.
good to see you
Yeah.
again. How you been?
Oh yeah, and like there's a lot of like every resident there, like they're just so much fun. They're so cool, and they kind of become your family. Like, I work there, most of the week, so I see them all the time, and I got married, and
Congratulations.
oh, thank you. And it was really fun. We had like a wedding program, and I came in like my bridal shower outfit, and I brought my bouquet, and like I made a slideshow for them, and they all got to
Wow.
kind of be a part of it. So like,
That's amazing.
yeah, so it was really fun, and they
And they're
were there
probably
like,
really happy for you.
yeah, and they were kind of like there through the whole process when like, they were like, "Oh, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Oh, I showed them pictures of, my bridal shower," and they all get so excited over stuff like that. So it was really cool to be able to share that with them.
So cool.
Thank you.
That's so cool. And congratulations. I'm sure
Thank
you're
you.
really, that's really a big step, a big milestone. But Annemarie, I want to get this back into our artist perspective because this is the purpose of our podcast. What does being an artist actually mean to you, and what kind of feelings spark inside you when you think about being an artist?
Being an artist is using your experiences and things that you've went through, and applying it to whatever medium that you use. So somebody who, their life's experience was whatever they went through, and whether it be, through art, like, art painting wise, or singing, or playing an instrument, or acting, all those things, using what, like, the lens that see life through, and applying it to any of those mediums.
That's actually interesting because there was someone else that on this podcast. He actually said that artist is looking through a lens and you actually see something and you capture something through the lens. And that specific individual art is very specific in regards to what he means by that. That's all I'll say for that. But, it's really up to perception in regards to how an artist thinks and how an artist performs and does things. Everybody has a different outlook on what art can mean for them, what it can do for them, how it could be there for them, how it can help heal them. A lot of people look at things differently, and that's what makes this world amazing, that everybody has their own opinion on things, how they have their own thoughts in regards to what will evolve when you're actually creating that art. So I think that's really important to understand. Do you feel like you need to be successful to be an artist, or what is your definition of being successful within the arts?
So I think that success in the arts can mean many different things to many different people, but I'm going to say that success in the arts can even just mean that you had a thought to create something and you did it and you got to perform it. I think that right there is success.
Yeah.
Someone could be performing, making so much money as a performer but not feel fulfilled by what they're doing. And I think success is finding joy in what you're doing and getting to perform it in front of people,
Yeah.
and sharing it.
Let me say it's part of it for me. Because at the end of the day, if you strictly just go ahead and perform for the audience, that's one part of it. But the other part I really feel like is you have to do it for you, and you have to see what feels natural to you. As we both learned, during our studies at school, the fact that, yes, you could kind of create an outlook in regards to trying to kind of make people happy, but ultimately success has to come from you. You have to really want to do and be in that moment to create, and you have to kind of find the joy in yourself. Otherwise, why do something that you're not going to be happy doing? It's not just for the audience, it's for you, and you have to really see what works and what doesn't work. Because if you don't see what works or what doesn't work, you're going to get stuck. As I was stuck many times, especially creating art myself.
Oh yeah, for sure. Over the years I've gone on a lot of auditions, and sometimes I just never felt like I fit in doing certain types of shows, and the more that I do these, I feel like I found my niche and it makes me really happy. So then when I do these shows, I remember what it feels like to find joy in what I'm doing, and I'm not just auditioning for something just to get a job. And I think that's how I was feeling when I was going on a lot of auditions for different things.
That's the way I actually feel. It's interesting because, when I started doing community theater, that was fun. And I thought, okay, you know what, this is what I actually want to do for a living because I really enjoy it. I enjoyed the art aspect. I enjoyed the actual part of creating relationships and close friendships and bonds. I mean, all of us, I'm sure that was a big, portion of why we actually wanted to go to college to excel and learn because, we had such a good time in the environment. But then obviously you have to add the business side on top of that. And then the business side of the thing, of the arts, when you're doing in any specific art, it kind of creates a more real aspect of life. And while, we still love the arts and, we want to do it because it makes us happy, it kind of starts to make us think like, do we, this is like a really big commitment. Do we really want to kind of continue with it? Are we sure that this is for us? So if you had to pick the top 3 most proud accomplishments of your art career, what would they be and why?
The first one I would say would be creating the act that I made and putting it out there. That was very challenging for me. And the feedback I got after was just so amazing. And then it inspired me and motivated me to continue. A second one would be, so I performed in this variety show competition through the House of Yes, and it was called Bushwick's Got Talent. And I performed in that competition 3 separate times. And the third time, I committed to doing that show, and it was directly after my wedding. And we had went on like a mini moon, like a 1-day trip. And then I knew I had to perform like the next day after we got back, and I was like, oh gosh, like, and I do this a lot where I'll commit to something. I'll be like, oh my gosh, like, me, I have so much going on, like, and second guess like if I should have committed. But honestly, that was the best show that I've ever had, and I ended up scoring really high with the judges that were there, who remembered me from previous times, and they were like, wow, like, that was amazing. And the feedback I got from that show, it really motivated me to continue to do this more again. A third accomplishment, I mean, these are all like in the same like types of performing. The third one, I got an opportunity where it was literally like 2 days before, and I got a studio rental and went over my piece, and then just went and performed, and called up my boss and was like, hey, I have to be in Brooklyn on Wednesday night. And she was like, okay, no problem, like, you can leave at 3:30. So I just took one of my pieces and then performed it that night, and it was a place I always wanted to perform at.
Where was that?
Brooklyn Art House.
Cool.
And the show is called Circus Moxie, and it was really fun, and I've performed there 3 times since.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Keep exploring, keep doing that. A lot of people are really counting on you to excel in your art and just to live through you, especially those people that are cancer survivors, that they are doing art, or maybe not, maybe they're not doing art, but they are looking at you as a role model that shows them that you never gave up, that you're continuing to do things for you, and to say that cancer can come second, and it will always come second, because I'm going to be that person that's going to overcome any obstacle that comes into my way. And a lot of people, when they're down and they don't feel like, they may not have the same confidence that you have, that this is something that's going to give them that gleam of hope, or that mindset change, and reflect in their own life and say, you know what, I'm going to do something for me. I'm going to pick up a hobby that's going to get my mind out of this whole thing of I'm sick. So I really commend you for everything. And I'm sure that any listener that is listening to this podcast right now, they're going to relate to you, and it's going to drive them, and you're going to be a role model to other people. What were things that were keeping you positive during your struggle with cancer?
It was taking things one step at a time. I mean, I was very fortunate where it was a few months of a process where I had to do chemo, but it was, I think it was like 6 months. But I kind of just tried my best to take it, step by step. I was able to still go to school, so that definitely distracted me a little bit. And I'm the type of person that, like, I need to keep doing things. Like, I can't, just stop doing the things that I really like doing. So it was definitely helpful to still have a routine of some sort. I remember, like, I was still getting, like, my coffee, and I was still able to eat my favorite foods, and like I would kind of treat myself here and there. You
Food
know,
always makes things better.
yeah, it does. I remember like I like certain types of soups, so like I got a day where I had chemo, I would get like soup or burgers, and at the time I didn't have any like food restrictions or anything, so I was able to eat whatever. Obviously, that's not always the case with every person. Everyone goes through when they have cancer. I've noticed that everyone has their own experiences based on whatever type they've had, and so everyone's experience is different. But with mine, I was able to treat myself, which everyone should treat themselves in some way when they're going through something like this.
And then I would assume you had like friends and family that were
Yeah.
there, 24/7. If you need anything, they were there for you.
Yeah, everyone was super supportive, which support is also big. Like, that also helps. I saw my friends here and there, so that was helpful. I
Yeah.
also performed, I remember, a few times.
I think that that's going to speak to a lot of people. That shows that you do something. Don't just sit at home if you're struggling with cancer
Yeah.
or any type of really illness or anything that's bothering you. Do something that's going to keep your mind busy, because that's going to help you in the long run. I would assume. I mean, listen, I've never had that, knock on wood, but at the same time, I can only imagine from what you're talking about right now that keeping your mind busy in positive lights is a good thing.
Yeah, of course, it's really hard to be positive all the time. It's gonna fluctuate, but I think that having an outlet is so important, when you're going through anything in life. And like my aerial stuff, I definitely think this is a very strong outlet for me. That whatever I'm going through, I take a class, and that's just that's how I cope with things. I need to be busy, and some days I can't do that. Some days I'm like, what, I self-care, I need to stay home. And then so like every day, I guess, for me, or in general for everyone, is going to fluctuate on how they cope with things. And I guess I would say, just pay attention to your body and see what you need that day. I think that's really big too.
Thank you for that. Thank you for, and for any of our listeners, know you're not alone. It's really a hard journey, but you're definitely not alone. There are definitely different outlets to look at.
It's hard to give specific advice because everyone's different.
100%.
But
Yeah.
from my experiences,
And
that
that's
is what
why,
helped me.
no, 100%. And that's why when I talk to people about specific hardships that they've had, especially on this podcast, I try not to actually make statements, more so ask questions about it. And I can only relate to the moments that I personally know. I can only just listen and see how I can be there for that specific person in those hardships. That's basically all I can do. Okay, so many people believe that art heals people. What are your thoughts on the arts helping people heal themselves? Now, I know you probably have a very strong opinion on this, especially because you work at a recreational therapy place for music to help people in those homes kind of feel comfortable with music and healing them in that aspect. So I'm excited to hear about your opinion on this one.
Definitely. I mean, I don't think you have to be an artist per se. But at my job, the people I work with, they have a certification in what they do. So they are music therapists, and they went to school for that, and they have their masters in that. And they'll like meet with a resident one on one, and they'll do art with them, and the resident will like paint or whatever, and it's a form of therapy. So that's an example of how someone can heal through art in that way. And some people can heal through it by singing a song. When I remember back when I was going through chemo, and in that stage of my life, I did still perform, and being able to still sing and do those things, it was really important to not stop. So it was very therapeutic for me to still continue to do those things.
100%. I remember when we were in school together and you came to class one day and disclosed that you had been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Do you mind telling our listeners what was going through your head at the moment? Do you remember that moment? What was the process like for you able to collect yourself after such difficult news hit you?
At first, I found out that I was diagnosed. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to go to school. And for me, that was upsetting, as I remember I had just gotten the letter saying that I had made it into the musical theater program. Because we had that, I think it was like a 1 year probationary period. I don't remember how it worked. But I got a letter saying that I did well and I was going into the musical theater department. So I was really upset, thinking that maybe that having cancer would make me have to stop going to school. And being able to continue going really helped me at that time. I do remember a few times in the very beginning with going to classes. What was really hard was that at the time, while I was going through chemo and going to class, I was losing my hair in clumps, and then I had a friend of mine shave it off for me, which made me also feel like I had power in some ways. And I think, and honestly, I ended up really liking my hair like that. I really liked it shaved.
You looked really great. To turn up negative into to a positive, it was actually, you looked
thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much. And now that I'm talking about it and thinking about it more, I think how this was healing for me, like this whole experience of going back to school, while going through all this, and shaving my hair, and being able to perform, it's giving yourself some type of power over the situation. And I think a lot of times that really helps to navigate through certain situations. And that is what I did.
Do you remember still that moment? Like, I can imagine it was like probably a very vivid memory of what you were doing.
So I remember being in my mom's car, and they called her and said, like, it's cancer and this is how you're going to be able to treat it. And what was hard is, like, you never really think that that's ever going to happen until it does. So it's like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do?
Yeah, because you don't think about it. You just, like, kind of go to your daily checkups, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah. And so I had really great doctors, though. And I really liked at the time she was a nurse practitioner, now she's a doctor, but I ended up going to her for all my follow-ups, and she was one of my favorite people, so I do like seeing her sometimes. But it's funny because driving here is like the route I would take to get there. I actually like passed it on the way, so I'm like wow, like it was just kind of like, I don't know the word, but it's like on the way here I kind of remembered going to
nostalgic
the place, yeah, in some ways, and it's just such a nice day, and I'm like, wow, I got through all that stuff, and and everything is great today. So it's
and
just
then to just come here and talk about it after so many years.
I went to my appointment recently, my 10-year follow-up. Well, I used to go once a year, but this was the 10th year that I went to this doctor's office for oncology, and I wanted to take a picture in the lobby because I wanted to, I had a little sign I made. It was 10 years in remission. And so my husband and I took a picture next to, I guess, the bell that they usually ring for last chemo. And a woman overheard my conversation about why I was there, and she is still undergoing chemo, and she came up to me and she said, hi, I overheard your story, and I'm still going through chemo, and I just wanted to ask if I can hug you, because that, hearing your story, it made her remember that there is an end to cancer. You can recover from it, and move on with your life in some ways. Like, obviously, healing does take time.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, that you're not alone.
Yeah, exactly. You're not alone in it. Other people do go through similar situations. And yeah, so that was a really, I was really glad that I was able to give her a hug and, tell her that it does get better. Or it can,
I was actually going to ask you, was there anything that you like said to that? Was there anything like I know, like the hug means a lot. You don't even have to say anything, and a hug can mean 1,000 things. But was there anything like that you said or that could say in that moment? I'm sure that's like a very overwhelming moment for anyone that, you hear that from someone else after you've done it, experienced it.
Yeah, I just remember hugging her back, and I was like, oh yeah, of course, like, thank you so much for your kind words. You're doing great. Just take everything, day by day.
I'm sure that she's taking that not with a grain of salt, and then God willing, everything turns out okay.
Yes.
She's going to pay it forward herself,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you can only.
It actually, that made me think of something too, because I remembered at that time when I had met this woman who asked for a hug. There was, when I first went there in the very beginning, there was a woman who was there, and she had the same exact, I don't know if it was the same exact cancer, because everyone has, a different experience. But I think she had stage 2 Hodgkins lymphoma also. But she was in recovery, and I think she was done with chemo too. And she was a person that I talked to. She was a random stranger. And she told me and my mom, or I don't know, my mom and I don't know. She told us that everything was going to be okay, and it's kind of like full circle type of thing. So I definitely think healing is a process. This year felt very different because when I went for my follow up, they said I don't have to go anymore. So that I felt like it's almost, in a sense, closing a chapter of my life in a way. But I do feel like, that experience does stay with me a little bit. But it's a process of working through it.
I always believe that it's whatever's meant to be is meant to be.
Yeah.
And so we all have to take our own paths in life. And whatever paths kind of happen, it's because that's what's meant for us to take. And I always say just never take life for granted. But it's just interesting how things kind of just come full circle. So you just said that, on a beautiful day, this is your 10th year being in remission, and you're coming the exact same way that you came to get treatment.
I literally got off the exit I would take. So almost like, oh, look, it's Lakeville Road.
Yeah.
Like it was just like really interesting. But it's funny because now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm like, oh wow, it's like coming. Is it full circle the way to say it? I don't know.
Full circle.
Like, it's just
because you're really kind of just touching home to what once was.
Yeah.
How did your cancer diagnosis and what you were going through affect your ability to do schoolwork and concentrate in class? How were you able to take on both?
I just remember being really tired. A lot of our classes were kind of physical, so we did have to move around a lot, so that was, challenging for me, but I did get through it, my own way.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first half of the year, honestly, I guess it was slightly easier than the second half. Maybe it's because, going through chemo for over a few months, it takes a toll on your body. But I remember Into the Woods was really hard because I had gotten into a show.
Yes.
And it's like a full-time job. You're there.
Rehearsals every day,
every
and then
day.
for I think every day for 3 weeks or something like that. And then you had
Yeah.
to put the show on, and that was a big show.
Yeah, and I remember that being really difficult, but I did what I could and did my best at the time. But it was definitely hard. I think the first half of the year was easier because I think I had a lesser workload, and then the second half, there was a show, so I had more work. But I just did the best I could, and that's all you can do is just take it a day at a time and just do your best.
Yeah. So, and I know you keep on repeating it and saying it, and I guess that's just what it is. I can't imagine what that it's like, but keeping you busy is, of course, going to always make something better in a negative situation. So for any of our listeners out there that really just need something that's going to distract them from any negative feelings or anything that's going on in their life, pick something up that's going to help heal you. Whether it's a hobby, it's a sport, it's doing something outside the norm that you're not usually that's usually comforting. Get out of your safe zone for a little bit. Maybe it's what you actually need is getting out of that safe zone and just exploring the other avenues that are there.
So I was actually going to add to that because I relate. I was never a dancer. I was always the singer who moves. And I just remember any type of dance, like choreography, would confuse me. I mean, it's still a muscle, I should still work, like I should still take some more regular dance classes, but the aerial really helped me like become a stronger mover. And honestly, I probably wouldn't have just chosen to do like that type of training had I not accidentally like tried it or, went outside my comfort zone. Like I said before earlier, my friend asked me to go to a yoga class. It was called anti-gravity yoga at the time. And that's where you would use a fabric to do yoga. So that's like that was the first aerial class I ever took, and it kind of opened up all those other doors. It was outside of my comfort zone. I would not have chosen to go there had my friend not said, "Hey, like come try this." And I'm like, "All right." And I went and I love it. Now I literally I do it all the time.
It's a daily.
Yeah. Literally like at least 3-4 times a week.
Because it makes you happy. It makes other people happy, and just do what you think is right for you. Because then that's you only have one life. You gotta live it to the fullest extent.
And you never know, until you try something, whether or not you'll really love it.
You don't. You really don't. Honestly, I couldn't agree 100%, 1,000%. Yes, continue to do what you love, and don't ever let anybody tell you that you are not doing something that you shouldn't, because they are not living you. If you were to be able to go back in time, what would you tell your younger self when you were looking for healing through your art? Would you have said something that might have been helpful for your journey? And this is a two-part question. What would you tell a future up-and-coming artist who is looking for a way to navigate the arts and to find healing simultaneously?
When it comes to healing, obviously everyone has their own experiences and what they're healing from. So my younger self who would perform or went to school for theater, I think looking at it now, I was very insecure. Now that I have discovered what lights me up and what the type of performing that really makes me happy, and I discovered who I am, I would tell my younger self, just keep trying to find the thing that makes you feel the most like yourself. I guess the things that I was doing, I really didn't do because I loved. I was doing it because I thought I had to, or thought that was, what was going to make me money in the field. And now I finally found, what I discovered really like where I belong, or where I feel like the most like myself. And I would tell, anyone else going into the arts the same thing. I've had teachers tell me that. They're like, why do you sing the song? And I'm like, well, it has like a really high note, or something. It's not really something that like I fully connect to, or that I'm singing because I really want to sing the song. I'm doing it for a different reason, I guess. It's hard. It's like so many different factors. But I think the bottom line of everything is do something because you love it. And I would tell my younger self to just, keep searching for that.
Annemarie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us on An Artist's Way of Healing and for sharing your story with us. What's even more amazing about your story is not only did your art heal you, but you made your art your career, and you are using your art to heal others every day. I can definitely say that you have impacted lives today in a positive way with your words, wisdom, and most importantly, the story you shared that led to your fulfilling journey as an artist. I hope people also get inspired to find their own journeys through art. Through art, we learn, grow, expand ourselves, and discover things within ourselves that we never knew existed. This is part of our healing. Our healing through our art keeps us going and thriving. It helps lead us to healthier and more fulfilling lives. Annemarie, it's very clear that you are an inspiration to many people, not only to those who are pursuing an arts career, but also to those who are not in the arts and listening to this podcast right now. You have given hope to those who have fought cancer in the past and to those who are currently fighting it now. Please continue to inspire people, as that is very much what people may need at this very moment in time. Through your past challenges that you have overcome, you have shown people that it's possible to literally do anything if you put your mind to it and to never give up. Back when we were in college together, it was an unbelievable accomplishment for you to not only beat cancer, but to take on a heavy schedule of studies at the same time. I can imagine you have continued to inspire people to this day with your milestones and the wins that you have made since then, with cherishing even the smallest wins, as that can evolve into future bigger wins. Keep being the amazing person you are by continuing to inspire people every day. We are watching you, and we can't wait to see the next exciting thing you do. With that said, thank you all again for tuning in to An Artist's Way of Healing. I'll see you next time, friends.